Hello. Hello, beautiful.
Hello.
Look at us.
Thank you, beautiful.
We're matching. I love it. And for those of you listening on audio, we're literally wearing the same style outfit. And this was not planned. The puff, we're wearing beautiful pink, puff shoulder tops, whatever. So hello, Queen. How are you? Welcome to
I'm
Break the
fine.
Code.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Now I am super excited to do this interview. My guest today is Monique Kwachou, Dr. Monique Kwachou. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. I make sure I get it right. Okay. So my guest today is Dr. Monique Kwachou. When I asked her for her bio, she gave me this toned down version of 2 lines of who she is. So I'm going to read it. It says, Doc Monique Kwachou is a Cameroonian reader, writer, feminist, education scholar, and youth worker. That's a beautiful summary. But allow me to say that I've had the privilege of
And
following
then she went to
for
LinkedIn.
years. And then what?
And then she went to LinkedIn and she proved that we all sound a bit more than we would say on a day-to-day basis on LinkedIn.
Girl, I mean, it was not just LinkedIn. Like I dug the World Wide Web, okay? Like just trying to get little pieces of you that are outside of the scope of us knowing each other as sisters, you know? So um how did I meet you? Honestly, my sister would always post little snippets of your status in our group chat. And I would say, who is this woman? Right? Like so many prolific things. So aside from your blog posts, your writing and stuff, the things you write on your status, which is very personal or, probably speaking to your more direct audience are, the little snippets of you that I got to have privilege to read. And I'm like, who is this? Who is this girl? And she's like, oh, you know, Mo is amazing. And then you're also just a big giver,
Right.
right? Like, and maybe you don't want to talk about that, but you're a big giver because it'll be birthdays and you're sending stuff from South Africa, like, and very, very thoughtful gifts, like even stuff like you and my sister are friends and you'd give her stuff that I wouldn't think to give her, which shows like for knowing that you haven't known her for as long as I have. And you can just be so thoughtful. I was like, oh, she's so amazing. So when I don't remember how we connected. Do you remember how we started talking?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, it was Chami's birthday, and you were
Oh
planning Chami's for your birthday. Yes.
yes,
So
yes.
finally got it in the same group chat.
We got in the
Because of the
same
planning.
group
Yes.
chat. So note to everyone, you can get in the same group chat. And then you find people and you connect with them. And I felt like once we connected, again, from reading your stuff over the years, it felt like I'd known you for a long time. And it was so easy to just talk and chat. And like there were no barriers or boundaries to, I feel like we've gone like super deep.
Probably because you were too welcoming, though. You were so welcoming. I was like, what have you? I had to go back to Chami and ask, what did you tell her?
No, I think you're absolutely amazing. So, um, once again, welcome to Break the Code. My guest today is Dr. Monique Kwachou. Right now, where are you? Because you can be all over the place. Tell us where you are today.
We are in Bristol today.
You're in Bristol. Okay.
In Bristol today, Bristol in the UK. I'll be
Mhm.
here for a few months before I return to Cameroon.
Where you return. So, what are you doing in Bristol?
I am a research associate for the University of Bristol, and I'm currently working on an EU funded project that has to do with African higher education, pretty much the creative lives of African universities. And it's a very complex, but not really complex, and it's hard, but like drawn out. So we have 4 case studies: Senegal, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, and Cameroon. And University of Yaoundé, one is a case study in Cameroon, and I'm in charge of that. So I'm in charge of that wing of the project. So some part of the time is spent here in Bristol, but the majority of the part of data collection and analysis will be done in Cameroon.
Amazing. Now that could be a whole podcast on its own, like talking about the research that you're doing. So, like, help my guests get to know you a little more. Tell us about yourself and your upbringing. Like, where were you born? Your family structure. When we're talking about code, it's nice to know the background story. So just help us to know a little bit about you.
Okay. Um, I am Monique Kwachou. I was born in October 1989 in Yaoundé, a single mother. And my first 3 years were in Yaoundé. So I'm told my first words were French, but I've lost all of that. So I'm relearning French on Duolingo right now. Um, my at the age of 3, my mom left Cameroon and sent me to the Anglophone regions, Kumba, particularly in the Southwest region. And she wanted me to be raised by her friend who who was a primary school teacher, who she felt would be a better influence at the time, and I would be learning English to come meet her in the US. That was her thinking. So um, I would eventually meet her at the age of 6. I traveled just as I turned 6 to the US and stayed there between the ages of 6 and 12. Returned to Cameroon, or was shipped back to Cameroon when she could no longer handle me as a single mother. And by the time my younger brother had been born, so we're just 2 of us. And she returned. So I returned to Cameroon, went right into boarding school, and have been going from house to house since. Between that time, between 2001 that I returned to 2008 that I went into university and had a room of my own for the first time. So perhaps the longest I've ever been in one place, 4 years steadily, has been my undergraduate years at University of Boya. Subsequently, I did the job hunt that everybody else does, and I found a job a year later.
This is after graduating college?
Yeah,
University?
I graduated in 2012, December 2012. I started working officially in 2014, like my first real paid contract job, January 2014. But prior to that, I had set up an organization, Better Brit Cameroon, with a cash award that I received upon graduation for academic excellence despite disability. I have a hearing impairment. So that helped me to be busy, to still do what I could with what I had, and freelance here and there and write. I loved writing. So that's that's the background. That's Since then it has been more studies, more work, more studies, more work till today.
More studies, more work. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know little bits and pieces of your story, but I never heard it so concisely. And then to summarize that, living for 4 years consistently in one place has been the longest time you've spent in one place. That was very, I don't know if to say shocking, but it was surprising to hear. Um, and then the words you used, like, you were shipped back from the US because your mom couldn't handle you. What do you mean your mom couldn't handle you? Like what, to share some of the emotion of that.
I think more and more, the first gen, as we millennials are reaching of age or adulting, is giving us more opportunities to tell our stories as we have found our footing. I think more and more we're hearing the stories of the first gen immigrant children, and the disconnect between them and their parents. That was my story. It's not an uncommon story. It was pretty much a story of a child that just came into American society and was struggling to belong there. Unfortunately, she came to American society with her own baggage already. She already had baggage from home. And the struggling to belong in a public school, struggling, are you African? Are you African American? What do I tick in this box that they keep asking me? Every time there is a box that you have to tick: female, male, Black American, Latin American, white, Caucasian, Asian, and I am neither or other. And I just hated the word other. I hated the word other. And so I kept taking Black American, but my mother wouldn't allow me to take Black American at the hospital when we were together. And every so often, like a recurrent rhyme was, "You're not African American, you're African, you're Cameroonian." And there was just that struggle of belonging and struggle of understanding each other, that you can't speak to this child and she doesn't see you as a mother. Funny story. Part of the story, I came into the US at the age of 6, right? Prior to my mom coming to traveling to the US, 0 to 3, my earliest memories are actually with my aunt, who was taking care of me while she was working at her salon. Between 3 and 6, I'm in Kumba and she's in the US. I arrived, I only knew her through a picture that was in the house that she had sent from the US. Like, the pictures that you take up when you've done your hair and you're looking good and you're at JC Penney. Those those backgrounds, like those brownish, like the lighting is good and everything. Exactly. So those are the pictures that she sent. And that's what I used to look at and pray that my mother will come save me. And then I get to the airport at the age of 6, and that woman does not look like that picture. And I have been calling somebody else mommy, because that's what we do out of respect. The mother in the house is called mommy, whether it's your mother or not. And I've been calling somebody else in Kumba mommy for so long, for 3 years, that I can't call this new woman mommy. I don't have any bond with her. So I actually called my mother auntie for like 3 months before she got angry one day, and she just lashed out at me, "Stop it. You will call me mommy." Yeah, so yeah, that's one of the earliest memories I actually have of her. Like that issue of mommy. And it's been like that since, I would say, we're so different and yet alike. Like they say opposites attract, and then like people fight each other. So yeah, the fact that I have your stubbornness, the very things that you want, that you have, that make you you, when you're seeing it in your mini me, you don't want to see them.
I know.
So, so I think that was pretty much our story of that difference in culture and not understanding, not having the bond, and then the pressure that living in a capitalist society puts on parents, on mothers. And I think one more thing that I'm learning now after therapy is just that she wasn't equipped for the child she was getting because of how she was raised herself. Now, if I was raised in Cameroon for the most part, anyway, I was, but if I did not have that neediness in me in the first place, that emotional longingness, the disconnect before I came to the US, and then you enter a society that kind of like capitalizes on emotions. I would say the American society really capitalizes on emotions, in that you are constantly made to think and feel or think in the way of feelings. I won't say it's bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying it is like the other end of the spectrum from where you are, coming living from a society where we're thinking of subsistence and whether somebody can eat and whether somebody can like and this is how I show you love. I've given you food. And then you go to the other end of the spectrum. And at 6 years old, I'm being put in a class where they're like, show me what you do with your mommy. Does she hug you in the night to read you a story? And you're looking at everybody like, wait,
Like
which
she
mommies do
fed
y'all
me.
have?
She
What?
fed me. Yeah.
Or you go to, or something as simple as, okay, you tell the class, I'm new in school and everybody's parents is showing up for PTA or baking cakes or saying they have a favorite blankie. The kind of just the examples that the teachers use in class that you cannot relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see this woman, I can count the number of times I would see my mother growing up. And it would be like Sunday mornings, especially, because she would work Saturday night and come in early Sunday morning. She works Saturday night and comes in early Sunday morning and cooks after church for the whole week and puts in the freezer. And then Sunday night, she's back to work and she'll do that. The food probably runs out by Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, you sort yourself out with Indomie or whatever,
Or noodles and
or cereal,
whatever.
or noodles or cereals, whatever it's in the house. Gary, there's always something. You will sort yourself out.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So your mom
that was
worked
me.
the night shift? Is that what?
She worked 3 jobs sometimes, I think. She works day and night. I think she kind of had like she would sleep while I'm because I remember another traumatic experience. But as I said, my mom and I used to like cross paths at home.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming as I'm going. Since she works night shifts, I will be going to school by 7 a.m. when she's
Right.
coming in.
Okay.
So one day though, Monique wanted to was trying to fit in. A lot of my school experiences were trying to find belonging, trying to fit in. And one day I had overstayed and I missed the bus because I was trying to make my hair look good with gel and look like Aaliyah. And there was one outfit that my aunt had bought for me and I wanted to look good in it. And I was planning to wear it. And like I was going to turn heads at school. And then mom meets me at home when it's already like past time to be in school. And then she chops my hair off then and there. And then she goes, drops me off at school. Yeah. So she's like, oh yeah, is this the hair that you wanted to do? Okay.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then she just like,
There's so many layers here, but so we're talking about how you were raised, um, and there's so many bits and pieces to this. But I think what's so fascinating about you is how you've shifted, how you've used your experience to really impact so many people's lives through your organization, through your writing, and through the work that you do. How would you say that your upbringing shaped your desire to learn the things you learned? Or was it actually an act of rebellion, like doing women's studies? Or, you know, um, when I was growing up, and I'm, a number of years older than you, but, the the narrative usually, at some point, most of us wanted to be either a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or yeah, those are the top three. Now you can sprinkle in a few other things, right? But how did when did you decide, or when did you know that, wow, this is what I want to study and this is how I want to show up in the world? Like, what made you make some of those decisions?
I would say it's a mix of all the reasons you gave. You asked, was it revenge? My success was a revenge. For a long time, I wanted to succeed as revenge because a lot of people did not believe in me when I was shipped back. And but as to succeeding was my revenge. But as to how I would succeed, as to what I chose, the field I chose to do, what I chose to study, the work I chose to do up to today, I would say it's what shaped me is pretty much like I don't know if you know the shape acronym like spiritual gifts, heart, personality, attitude, experiences. That's the shape acronym. I would say all of those things are the reason I am what I am today. Um, or the reason I do what I do. I always remember being uncomfortable with injustice. Always remember whether it was seeing my mom tense up around police officers in the US and the way she'll say, "It's a seatbelt on. Make sure their seatbelt is on. They're approaching us." That kind of thing. Or the kind of thing, like the change in this person that is domineering towards me, being coward towards that person.
Right.
There has always been a kind of like a feeling of a need for warmth, probably because of the way I grew up, the need for belonging. And I have always felt called to young people because I remember being a troubled young person myself. And I remember needing somebody myself. So it's pretty much a mixture of both. If somebody asks me, and I have been asked, why do you always come back to Cameroon? That is a question I get all the time. Like, you're traveling, you have a visa to this, and then you're in this country. Why are you always coming here? What is wrong with you, Ray? Why do you like this country like this? And I remember and sometimes I would joke and I'll be like, they buried my umbilical cord in Yaoundé. I'm sure someone has built a house on it. That's what's making me to come back. But
because the pervasive narrative is if you have a way to get out, then you should
get out and stay out.
Right. And you can go to the UK, you can go to the US, you can study in South Africa, you can be anywhere in the world, but you continually choose to live in Cameroon. What is wrong with you?
Oh my God. Surely something that's not wrong with other people. I don't want this to be wrong with them. May they enjoy their lives, okay? May they enjoy their lives. Let nothing be wrong with them. But I would say, I've asked myself that question as well. And at the end of it, it's what you're saying right now, is how we have been shaped. And I cannot see myself staying in the US because of the experiences I had while there and my understanding of it. And my longing for where I could be grounded and feel at home. I don't think any one place, perhaps because, and I would say this is privilege as well. If I was not middle class, if I was uneducated, if I did not have the opportunities and the exposure that I have, I will not be choosing Cameroon. That's just the truth. So it comes from privilege. It comes from privilege of knowing that, okay, I'm not handicapped or disabled. Anyway, I have a hearing impairment, but I'm not disabled in the way that I need a medication that Cameroon does not have. Okay. Or I'm not, or need the emergency services that Cameroon will not provide. I'm not in a field that cannot prosper in Cameroon because of the way things are going. So yeah, there is that privilege. But a lot of it, the fact that I'm choosing it is because when I think of where is home for you as somebody that has always longed for home, I can't help but think of Cameroon. Even I'm not saying where is perfect place for you.
Right.
Home is not a perfect place. It's where is home for you. where can I demand my rights, even if I don't get my rights? I'll probably get more of my rights here in the UK than I would in Cameroon, but I cannot demand them here. I'm forever an immigrant here. If in a situation where they are abused, I do not see myself demanding. I don't even, it's not like I can check, are these social services available for me? I already know I'm an immigrant. So I'm not searching for those. I'm not asking for more. Just do what you came here to do and go, because these people do not even want you here. Um, but in Cameroon, hey, if they are giving out mosquito nets, I have a right to be there. And you people, even if it's mosquito net I can buy, I have a right for you to give it because I know it's my taxes that bought it. So it's like I know this is my place. And also, because I know it's my place, I also know that I can give to this place. I have not only a right to the place, but a duty to the place. I do not have that duty elsewhere. As someone who teaches gender studies, I'm very conscious of context because gender is something that changes with context. When I was in SA, the reason I did a PhD in the first place was because I love teaching. And the University of Boya said, if you're not enrolled in the PhD program, if you do not have a PhD, you can't teach, you can't lecture full time. So I was lecturing only part time, under like supervised.
Okay.
And so I went for the PhD. While I was there doing the PhD in essay, I was asked, oh, you really love teaching, Monique. Why don't you teach here? And I was like, yeah, no, it's different. When you teach gender in Cameroon, when I teach gender in Cameroon, I use cultural examples that students are able to understand because gender is a social construct. And I understand the context. In SA, the context is different. The construction of gender is different because the context is different. The things that okay, let me
Elaborate.
give you an example.
Yes, please.
Um, in Cameroon, one of the gender norms might be that in certain places, women are not supposed to eat this part of meat, something very silly, right?
Yeah.
But because I know the context and we can trace the history of that area, or I am aware, we are able to explain why this thing started up before it became sexist.
Mm.
Likely that is just a bird flu that went around, or it has been. So this today was a bird flu that went around, and that was actually to protect women.
Wow.
That not eating the egg, not eating was actually to protect women. But over time, the bird flu has finished, and the men have noticed that okay, this part is good, so you keep it for myself, and you do. It continues. It's warped over time. It's most of the culture or the traditions are man-made. They're man-made often for protection of a small class of people or for protection of the whole.
Right.
But then time changes, new inventions come up, and we refuse to change with them sometimes. Like, oh, no, no, this is our tradition. Or that if we have an understanding of the source of the tradition, it will be easier for us to change things. For instance, Bayangi people have a culture of having their own buried in their land,
Okay.
especially their daughters. Nobody asks why. And they're just like, oh, they're very superstitious. It's because they have witchcraft and all of this. But it's actually linked to the fact that when those from the coast, the Backwarians and all the rest, when the slave trade was happening, they would come and take Bayangi women. They would come and take women from the hinterland, and you go sell them. And then you say your wife has died, and you come and take another woman and go back. And it happened frequently. So they made a
Wow.
law that if your wife has died, bring my daughter back to me. She has died, I accept, bring her corpse. If you cannot bring her corpse, then we'll know that you killed her. So a lot of these practices were for protection, but now they're being used like, oh, now you have to ship a corpse from Germany. You're making a widow or a widower ship a corpse from Germany, raising crazy sums of money when he could be buried with his child in Germany that is now German, therefore he created their lives there. But you're sticking to that tradition and you're straining yourself. But that tradition was actually meant to protect you. These things require us to know our background, know our history for us to actually address them. Because if you go now and start telling people that you change, all is that you're breaking tradition. But
Right.
even if they don't understand the reason of the tradition, you're breaking tradition. But if they understood it, they could be like, okay, let's honor this tradition in a different way.
Right. And I think a lot of times the like when you hear people say, oh, they just don't respect tradition, they don't honor tradition, it's looked at with prejudice, right? Um, and it's so interesting, so fascinating. Honestly, we had no plan for this conversation to go in this direction, but it's so fascinating to hear this, this background. And I know about the Bayangi people and the burials and stuff like that. I had no clue. So when you hear someone say, well, we're not going to do it that way, it's usually just, oh, they don't honor the culture, right? But you're saying we have to learn the history of the culture, and it's most appropriate, or it's not necessarily easier, because I know that digging up facts like this takes, a really special person to do that kind of work with the way our history was told and kept. But wow, 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 wow.
Okay,
Again,
so the reason I was using those examples was to illustrate to you why I couldn't teach an essay. Now,
yeah,
you just made a statement of prejudice. Me going to essay as a Cameroonian, even as a woman, as an African woman, I would be prejudiced to hearing things like virginity testing and asking, why are you not testing the men? This is what white feminism does. It pretty much just assumes, oh, uh, Muslims make their women cover up. They are disempowering them. And you don't appreciate, perhaps the women want to be covered up. Perhaps the woman chose this.
right.
And perhaps it was the reason for, I mean, if it's from a bad place, let's understand that from a bad place and deconstruct that and address that. But I cannot come and teach without understanding the context, without belonging to the people, without understanding why you say amala. Then what am I teaching gender for?
Mm-hmm.
Because I need to understand, how were the men made here? How were the women made here? There's an insult that was common in Boya when I was an undergraduate student, and my lecturer, one of my favorite lecturers, Madame Justine, Dr. Justine Ayuk, used this example to teach us the issue of the problem with social constructs. He said, now we are abusing men. It don't bad to take a man picking and he said tomato. As a way of saying, this is a feminine thing that men are now doing,
Right.
selling tomatoes. And it comes back to, they try to explain that when the colonial masters left, or even during the colonial period, what the men were working on were things like tea, tobacco, rubber, these farms. And then the women were left for subsistence farming. But now with the economy growing and plantations being taken over by the government and so on and so forth, you see a man selling tomato. And that should tell you how gender transforms over time. Now, I have that background because she has shared that background. Mm-hmm. If I go into a class as a lecturer without that background, I won't be able to teach well, like with examples that they can relate to. And that's very important. So I can say, to answer your question, it's all shaping what we do, what we choose to do, what we're passionate about. Our backgrounds, it shapes what we continue to do even today as a society.
Amazing. 100%. But again, your journey, because the general narrative, like we're saying in the beginning, is that when you have the opportunity to leave the continent, right, especially with all the political turmoil and stuff like that, most people are like, give me a passport, let me go, right? And you have found, and not only finding, you created the space to be there, and you did the work to allow you to continue to be there. You're like, well, if I can't teach here, what do I need to do to make me qualified to come back, right? To teach and to serve. Um, I think that it's such a testament to really living intentionally and living on purpose. Like for a lot of people, it's can you make enough money? Can you support yourself? Can you support others with the type of work you do? With the type of work you do, how, what are the opportunities? Like if someone else is saying, don't do gender studies, you know, you'll never find a job. Don't don't live out your passion because you can't support yourself. How do you tell them that you can create the opportunity to do that? Because that's what you've done and what you've done so beautifully. How do you how did you leave the very and I know I've wrapped up so many questions in this, but how do you leave the very, I would say, heavy demands, familial demands of fitting within a certain, you know, status quo
Context.
to do the things that you do?
I have to say, though, I have to be upfront. I am more privileged than many, and I recognize my privilege. My number one privilege is the fact that I do not have siblings, extended relatives depending on me. My mother has two kids, and one of them is with her and has always been with her. He's 10 years younger than me, so he's her baby. I was on my own in Cameroon and I had to sort myself out, but I did not have to feed or babysit or worry about somebody else. I just worried about myself. So that has been a very big privilege that I cannot undermine. Another thing is because you have nothing, you also have nothing to lose. So you're able to take some risks that other people will not. Without anybody to guide me, I did rely on God a lot. I did have to create without family in Cameroon, like my close, without a nuclear family, I've had to create my own family. I've had to, um, I would find friends that I would depend on, create family from friends, create family from colleagues, create family from church members, create family everywhere.
Mhm.
And you just pick out like those that are your role models. You create role models from them. I've had to ask a lot for help. And because there's nobody, if I don't ask, nobody's going to give. So that has all shaped me. And it's something I'm appreciating now because I see that the people you envied growing up who had mom and dad and everything like that home base that they've always known that security. Because they have always known that security, it was hard for them to leave that security because they've always known that security. Someone has always told them what to do. They didn't have to think about, why am I doing law? My father told me to study law so that I can write concours.
Mhm.
So they were infantilized a lot. Whereas I was on the other end. I had to be like, okay, Monique, why do you want to study this? You talked about how do I doing something that's my dream. And if somebody told me to do gender studies, would I have said no or been? It's not gender studies I wanted to do. That was not my dream.
What was your dream?
um, what was my dream? Okay, so I've had many growing up, but I would say when I was applying into the University of Boya, I knew I wanted to work for an international
Organization.
humanitarian organization,
Okay.
either UNESCO, UNICEF. If you say my earliest personal statements, that was the dream, that I was going to work for one of these organizations that make you feel good while make you earn good as well. I was like, that's a dream. I'm doing good work and like humanitarian work, and then they're paying me well. Perfect. And so I thought of, how do I get to UNICEF? What do I need? And I'll be asking people, what do I need to do this? What do I need to do that? And they were like, oh, you need to go to ERIC. And what do I need to get to ERIC? Oh, you should get a political science degree because that's what they need for the concours.
Define
So I put
ERIC
political
for those
science
who
as my
don't
first choice.
understand what ERIC is. What is ERIC?
Oh, okay. For the listeners that don't know, ERIC is our National School of International Relations and Diplomacy.
Okay.
And it's kind of like it's a professional school for the most part. Historically, if you go there, you're guaranteed a job in one of the diplomatic, as an attaché in one of the consulates around the world. But increasingly, it has diversified to welcome more students. So they offer programs like international communications, humanitarian work, and international finance, so on and so forth. Just everything international studies.
Okay.
And so that was the plan. And I remember putting political science as my first choice. I put what else? I put law as my second and sociology as my third. Gender was not even there.
Okay.
Lack of counseling, proper counseling. And that's one of the things I'm very passionate about now with Better Brit Cameroon, doing that counseling because I know what it meant for me.
Right.
Within within weeks, somebody else gave me better counseling and I regretted everything I wrote on my form. So immediately admission list came out. I was crying at the chancellor's office
Oh.
that please change me, please change me.
So
And
what did
everybody
you
looked at
get
me like, who
accepted
is
to?
like,
Political science?
that was, yes, I was taking in political science.
Okay.
And they were just like, you're ungrateful. So many students have not been admitted and you're here saying that they should change you. I mean, and everybody would tell me, I was asking the older students what I could do to change. And they're like, oh, you have to do the first semester or the first year, you can change next year. I was like, no, I can't do that because gender is 4 years. That means I'll spend 5 years for the degree. So like, they're like, okay, then go to the faculty, go to all the offices and just start crying. When they see women crying, they're afraid. If you see a man cry, if you see a woman, don't cry because they'll slap you. That was the advice I was given. And that's what I did. I literally went to every office that there was a man there and I was just crying
Oh. And then you got what you wanted.
until they changed me.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. So you got some counsel from someone and your vision was to work in an international organization, do your bachelor's and then go to ERIC and then, live your life on the road, making big money and, just living the dream.
No,
No?
fortunately, that dream changed. Thank God for growth. Because by third year, I realized, yeah, when it concerns the idea, my idea of what UN work what was life-changing work was what the UN did.
Right.
And it would be a one that is respected. Everybody would love it if you're working for the UN. You get paid well, you have the stature and everything. So by third year, though, I would say because of internships, because of a lot of volunteering experiences, it was eye-opening. Like, and also because of finally enjoying a room of my own,
Having space
I could
for
appreciate
yourself.
that I'm not the person to be on the road. You
Mm.
do not post me in South Sudan or Somalia. Please. I've already been disconnected enough. Enough. Okay. I need to be in a comfort zone. I have not had the comfort of my own space. I need that.
In this
So
space, in this, because you talked about living in the same space for 4 years, but if you're the definition of space is expanding to not just your living space, but the country, the region, the community. Would you say that? Okay.
yeah, because I don't need to translate myself in this community. When I say Asia, everybody understands what I mean. I don't need to, I can sleep with my doors unlocked. I don't have new anxieties
Mm.
of, or a new code to learn of how women should sit or stand or what food should be eaten.
Mhm.
For somebody that has had a very unstable background or upbringing, that code of instability, I had to break that. I needed roots. And that it made me start reconsidering that dream of that UN work. I was like, yeah, no, I can't be, that wouldn't be a dream life for me anymore. And if I do, and then with the volunteering experiences, I'm like, well, considering what I know now, those organizations are very bureaucratic. The people that are really changing people on a day-to-day basis could be my lecturer that just changed the way I thought in the classroom,
Mm.
could be the person that's working with community organizations. So that
And you
was like,
became both
okay.
of those.
So
And
that's what I went for. That was the change of the dream in the process of getting the degree that changed that dream. So it's still the same dream. You still want it, um, which is something I try to make young people understand. Our dreams don't really change that much. It's still the same dream that you had. You were interested in young people. You wanted to do youth development work. You wanted to change. You were interested in social change, right?
right,
But how
the
is
how
different.
change. Yeah.
How the change is coming about, whether it's in the classroom or it's in another country, whether it's in the classroom or it's on the field as a humanitarian worker or it's in an office, whether the change is coming about by you for your country, for your own people, or for other people, that how is what really changes. It's not really like your dream. Very few of us actually change the dream unless we do not have one, unless we never sought our own in the first place. Because the first thing, if I never had one in the first place, I would have just followed what my mother said. And that was go to St. Louis and learn nursing, and then you come and name me in the US and you be a nurse.
Be a nurse.
So it's
How
like,
did your
yeah.
mother receive the change? How did your mom receive the change when you're like, I'm not doing nursing, I'm doing gender studies? How was that received? And how have you processed how she received that?
Um, One thing about my mother is I would give her credit for the fact that if you prove yourself, you get to do what you want to do.
That's
If you
incredible.
prove yourself.
Yeah.
She has never been the kind that will force you. Anyway, she can try, but she won't like, she can try,
You'll make a
but
strong
you're,
suggestion.
yes.
You made a strong
As every African parent, though, she will at least try. She will try one, two, three, but after that, there is not like, you must.
suggestion. So you
Um, I
lose the
think
privilege of.
perhaps because we're so alike.
He's
Perhaps
like,
because we're
I
so
know
alike.
how much I can push and how far I'll get, which is nowhere.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. She knows that if I think I ask people always ask me like, "Huh, where did you learn to um argue like this? Where did you learn to do you learn to act like this?" Or those like or your personal statements. Oh, you're writing your personal statements so well. And I think it was Kawala during one of our events articulated it perfectly when she said the first person I had to defend myself to was my parents. They forced me. The first motivational letter I wrote was to my mother to explain why I needed $20. I mean, or why I wanted to go and sleep at this person's house. You know the way you're preparing your mind before you go and ask for permission that there's a sleepover. And you're like, you already have a case, the introduction, the body, the argument, the problem statement, everything, and the conclusion of how you're going to go and lay your case or why you need to be at that sleepover. And you've already done the other things like before they ask, have you cleaned your room? Check. Have you? Oh, check. And that's pretty much what we're doing with scholarship applications, basically. So why should I give you this? I've already done this, and this. And if you give me this, you will get this. The first person that set me up for that was my mother.
Amazing.
And because you have to defend yourself in that way, up to today, you have to have a reason for everything. Last year, I made one of the biggest acts of faith ever in my life. I took a leap, the kind of leap you only see in Hallmark movies. I quit my job in SA. I quit the postdoc, and I said I was returning to Cameroon, even though I did not know what I was returning to. I just knew I could not continue staying in SA for my mental health. And not only did I return to Cameroon, but I would be leaving the Anglophone regions that I call home, my comfort zone.
Mm.
And there, like, I just felt, okay, God had told me to move, to leave this place that I want. He keeps telling me to move, but I keep coming back here because I love the University of Boye and I want to teach here. But it was very clear that no, you do not need to be there, not now. And they don't want you here, not now. So I packed up, sold things, paid rent with my savings, and literally just went to Yaoundé. And so I was going to learn French and I was going to continue just applying for jobs and see what happens. That was the biggest act of faith ever. But even doing that act of faith, Monique still needed reasons. So Monique literally did uh, this thing, SWOT analysis, pros and cons of going, like compare a graph, and I mean on a on a document. And actually, my friends were like, "Hey, is this what it means to have a PhD? Because this is how you overthink everything."
You don't have normal conversations. You're like, I need to do a SWOT analysis of my life to help determine the next decision. But you had already made the decision. You just needed to convince yourself that you were doing the right thing, right? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm hearing? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because that is what the code is. It's that voice in your head that has been put there. You're saying
And
convince
make you
yourself. You're
question
convincing the code.
when you're
You're
when you're stepping outside of what has already been imprinted
what
and
is
you're
normal,
what has been
what is
normal,
proven.
yes, which is a wonderful job in South Africa, doing a postdoc, getting all these accolades to your name. And now you're like, I'm leaving that and
You
I'm
don't
going
know
back
French.
to
You have a hearing impairment. You keep seeing all the cons.
all the cons, but yet you still went. You still said, it's time. What type of, how did it feel? Like, share the emotion of that decision. Obviously, doing your SWOT analysis, of course.
Scary as hell. Nobody
Yeah.
should ever tell you. I mean, the thing that they don't say in the Hallmark movies, they make it seem like adventurous and she's so free
Just
and she has left
bouncing through
and
the
she's just
air and
going
fields and
and she's
lilies.
leaving. Panic.
With our beautiful pink dresses.
Panic, pure panic.
Mhm.
I was praying. I was like, Lord, see, if this is a mistake, just sort it out, please, because I don't know what I'm doing. It
But
was
can
pure
we
panic and it was
align?
constant arguing because you're fighting. They say a ship doesn't sink until water gets inside it. If everybody else outside is doubting you, if the water is full outside it, everybody else is doubting you, it's fine. But because of code, because of internalized isms
Mhm.
and internalized self-hate or internalized like everything, the socialization of being, we ourselves have that water. So what makes me drown at this point more often than not is the amount of water I let in. It's not whether I did not need to convince my mother, I did not need to convince other people. It's the fact that
Nobody.
I myself was not that convinced.
You keep replaying that messaging over and over again and filling that boat. And then we drown. And that's where the mental health challenges come in. And we're suffering and drowning and nobody sees it but you. And a lot of times we don't even recognize it ourselves because that's normal.
Because when you're saying, yeah, that's right though. Of course you should be worried. You're taking a very big risk and it's very stupid what you're doing. I mean, it is very rationally, it's proven. You're leaving comfort, something that people will die for, kill for, and you're leaving that for
a
this.
literal, very
Unknown.
literal in the Cameroonian context, that people are literally dying to leave that country,
Dying on the road.
on the way, and you're like,
You're giving a
give me a ship to sail back home. Yeah.
and then you arrive. And it's not like Cameroon is going to motivate you. It's not like you arrive the place and then you'll be feeling
dancing
like
and welcoming you.
it's not like you're going to arrive and then you're going to feel like, oh, this feels right. There's this, it just felt right when I landed. I was worried, but when no, when you landed, it did not feel right. When you landed, you actually saw there was no water. There was no power. The reality hit you. You're wondering about like, oh, when you landed, you're like, these people are expecting things from me. I'm bush faller, but you're broke.
So you're broke. How do you push through that? How do you push through, almost
A friend,
getting to the place where you're drowning, breaking through that and saying, no, I'm going to stick with this new programming that I feel is so important to me, so important to the essence of whom I am and this person that I'm becoming acquainted with. But honestly, you don't really know, right? This other person is the person you know, but there's this longing for this version of you that you're trying to move into, but nobody can see why that's important. And on the journey there, it's hard. It's hard, it's hard, it's hard. How do you keep pushing through to go
that's a
there?
very good question. That's a very good question. That's a very good question. It reminds me of a question that a post I've always said, how do you give what you've never had? Or how do you give, like, if you've never had a good father, how do you be a good father? Okay, now to answer your question though, I'll say 3 points come to mind. You need to know yourself. We need to do a lot more self-work and face ourselves.
Can you say that again? Because I think
Face
we hear
yourselves.
that so many times. We need to know ourselves. We need to do self-work. We need to face ourselves.
Yes.
What does that take, though? What type of self-work are
It
you doing?
means it means you need to know, okay, the example used, perfect. That you know this is all you've known. I've known this Monique, the one that diets, the one that restricts eating, and the one that feels like she is having this problem or she needs to be this person. This is what make her happy or this is what make her whole. So how do you change that code to accept something new? How although what is in your head is this is what is right. This thinner version of you will be the better version of you. This no matter how you get there. This thinner version of you will be a happier version of you, no matter how you get there. That will require you facing yourself honestly and knowing yourself to be like, where did I get this idea? When did Monique start believing this? Why does Monique believe it? What is my why for wanting this? Happy. What is my why for wanting this thin? And because we often just say, oh, I want to work for the UN. Why do you want to work for the UN, Monique? Oh, it's a good job. I get paid and I do something that's right. Okay, you could get paid anywhere else. So if they give you the same amount of money working in advertising, will you go? No, why won't you go? I don't like the idea of advertising. Why don't you like the idea of advertising? And when you ask all these questions, you start to find out that perhaps it was not only the money and the job at the UN, perhaps it was somebody's thinking that this would be the idea of success. But you need to do that self-work of like problem tree that we do in development studies. You see the roots, the leaves. I'm sorry, you see the leaves of what happens, the stereotypes in society, but you do not see the roots of it. You see the problems. We see very few women in STEM. We see problems like adultery prevalent amongst men. We see these are the problems on the problem tree. We don't see the roots, as in how we raise the boys, or what we told the girls, or the stereotypes, or the socializing. Those are things that are hidden under. So it's the same with you. You see Monique likes it when they tell her that, or they call her our wife, or Monique craves for to be known as elder in church, or Monique might want the title of doctor. And she needs to be able to unpack, why do you want doctor? If you just had the knowledge but without the title, would it be okay?
Right. So part of the self-work is unpacking
and questioning and self-interrogation to know that it's you and not what has been put in you. So I said that's the first part. So you should know, okay, this is me. It's my taste. I'm the one that likes pink. It's not because you've told me that pink is a girly color. I mean, if you put me anywhere, if I wouldn't be judged for it, I would still choose pink.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, it's me. This is me. I'm the one that likes my color. It's not because I've been told that being fair is better. I will still choose this one.
Right.
Even if you gave me other options.
I love it. I love how the conversation has come back to examining, because in the beginning, that's what you were talking about when you were giving the examples of the culture, whether it was in the burial rites and stuff like that, is examining the why behind how those decisions were made within the context of that place, that society, that system, and
the time.
And the time. And now, if we're looking at ourselves, to be able to really live this authentic and full life where we feel we're living a happier, healthier version of ourselves, it does take that same type of work of examining where the programming came from, how it has affected us, and how it's serving us. Because for some people, it's okay. It's okay, and it's needed.
It's serving you, then it's okay.
Perfect.
You don't have to change everything.
Exactly.
You don't have to change everything.
So sometimes,
but we're going to have to know what to change. We won't know what to change and what not to change if we don't, how to call it, if we don't ask those questions, if we don't do that work.
Right.
I would say, secondly, you asked how else how we can do that, how you can break from that, how you make that choice despite the internal thoughts. It's knowing yourself, knowing that this is me and not somebody else. Second, I would say, is surrounding yourself with the right people. Very important, because you can only do so much by yourself. There are times when your friends are going to be the one to take a pail and remove the water from you that is drowning you. And you might or be avoiding a certain part of yourself that you don't want to confront. And it's a friend that's going to have to ask that question. Why do you think this? Don't you think this, you're prejudiced towards this? Because their prejudices are called prejudices because we do not know them. It's it's prejudice. Right. We do not know. It's like it's already in you. So somebody might want to ask you, why did you specify I have a gay friend? Why not just friend? And somebody else is going to have to ask you that, because in your mind, maybe you're always thinking that's a major label for that person.
Right.
So yeah, have the right friends to be able to pull that out, because society will be forever putting that water. The water is already around you, and the water is inside you. But as you know, to ensure that you don't sink, there will be seasons of when you can pour out more than others, and you need some people around you to be able to help you with that.
I love that.
Like,
It's so important, the company
yeah.
that we keep. Have you had to, because I know on my personal development and self-development journey, um, I've had to seek out people that were aligned to the place that I want to go. Have you found that you had to do that also, and probably let go of some people as well on the journey? Is that
Yes,
part of your story?
yes, definitely. I've had to do that all my life, though. I've had to do that all my life because, like I said, I was creating family.
Mm-hmm.
So you will have to look, if the place I want to go, I need I don't know how to study, or I've not never studied this before. I need help. I'll go find the smartest student in class and ask her, can you help me with this? How do you do this? If I know that this person is my role model, she has this job that I really want to have her profile, I'll go look at her LinkedIn profile and see her background. How did she get there? You have to be deliberate about the influences that you bring in when you've had no influence, or when you have very little influence towards what you want. You crave for validation because you want to be like, okay, what I know about myself, what I desire is valid. Even if you guys don't think I'm doing the right thing by quitting this job, this is an example of somebody who says she quit her job and she's doing just fine. So I had to go look for that example. And I did just that. Or there are people that like, oh yeah, I've decided I'm not going to have kids. And ask them, what made you to decide this? I'm considering this. I'm considering adoption. What made you to decide on adopting? How was your experience? I think our culture, Cameroon, society in general, one of the greatest disservices we do ourselves is our hiding, the secretiveness that we breed in our culture. Don't tell this person your income. Don't tell this person that you're working here. Don't tell this person you're traveling. Don't tell that. They're always on guard. It's like, I don't know, we serve a God of fear.
So guarded. And it is such a
The society
disservice.
serves a God of fear, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're perpetually on guard against your village people. And I don't know, and nobody's ever
And your
asking
ancestors.
the prejudice around the idea that all the bad people are in the village is coming from that globalization mentality of thinking that the good people are in towns or in urban areas. Nobody's questioning that part.
Nobody.
To say that, oh, the village people, your village people is your village people. I said the village people are the ones that have nothing in your hands and they're just evil. The people in town are not evil enough. I mean,
Yeah.
I see the one at ATD. I mean, these ones in town are not evil enough.
Yeah.
But we don't say our town people, we don't say the city people, we don't say the capital people. Nobody says the capital.
No. Right. Yeah.
Nobody thinks of the Hunger Games. It's the capital people that are evil. No, it's our village people. Your village people are after you. So you don't say anything about you getting pregnant. Because if we were more open, I'll be able to know, perhaps you'll be able to know, person, woman next to me will be able to know, this is how much you're supposed to get paid for this job. This is how much you should demand.
Yeah.
This is how much, this is how my household is. This is how I'm able to deal with in-laws that do this or that. This is the kind of things you should note putting in your will. Is the reason why you should have a will might not be that you have money, but because you can also ensure that your kids don't go to this relative. Or like, speak from your experience. Let me know. We have so much that we do not share because we're all raised to hide things, to be secretive, to cover your roof. And in covering your roof,
whatever is in the house should stay in the house. Yeah. And so many people are suffering in those houses, right?
You're covering your roof means that nobody can help you remove the water
The
that is.
water. I love your water analogy. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna steal it and use it forever.
Sure, sure.
That's why you shared it, right? So we can use it. Thank you. Because we need
If
to.
I'm locked up, then I'm going to drown. Nobody, you can't actually like. It's the first rule of swimming. You had water in you, right? There's water surrounding you, and you've inhaled some. Imagine locking your mouth
Mm.
because you wouldn't be even able to have air for your body to rise up. You sink down. So you need to be able to let it go or let it out. And that's why I would say the American society with the vulnerability, it's really has been helpful to me. As much as as much as I say, oh yeah, it's the other end of the spectrum and they feed on emotions. But still, I love the fact that uh, the vulnerability breeds because you can find anything in anyone to share, and everybody's willing to share their story. They encouraged you to write your story. How did your holiday go? How did your day go? Tell us something. Write a story about a time you were afraid. Come on, is it normal in Cameroon? Write a story about the time you were afraid. Somebody will write you an Nollywood script, you know. Aside from the fact that you're not encouraging creativity in kids, just the fact that it's not something we want to hear. It's not something you encourage kids to hear. Somebody will be like, "Are you trying to find out what is happening in my house? Why are you asking my child this?"
And this is so interesting. And I know we can go on and on and on, but it also speaks to the way the education system in Cameroon teaches from a young age is the whole regurgitation, right? Not that creative process, not that free spirited thinking. It's
Not
I'm giving
individuality.
you this and I want you to give it back to me the same way I gave it to you, right? And if your life is mapped out that way as well, it's, hey, I'm gonna need you to give it back to me the same way. And I think it's also part of the reason why there's so much struggle is breaking the code. As you've said, it's not easy, it's work. But if you don't even have the basic skills to think creatively, think outside of the box, to
To think
recognize who you
critically.
are, to think critically, right? To recognize who you are and then reassign or realign your future, then that's why we're suffering as a society. That's why better breed Cameroon is needed. And I
I
love
hope
the
it
name
survives,
of your
honestly.
organization.
Let's pray for it. Let's pray for it. We're looking for somebody right now, and this is as stepping down as executive director. We're looking for somebody that's going to take it. I'll move to the board. We're looking for somebody that's going to take it to the next chapter. So I hope it survives. I hope it continues. But let me not lie. If I had to do one thing to change that educational system, first thing, if I had the power, first thing I would do is mandate philosophy.
Mm.
Logic would be number one. From Form 1, everybody's studying philosophy,
Who
at
are
least
some
some parts of it.
philosophers you would recommend that people should study? Now, because we're talking about cultural context and
I wouldn't actually say you study any particular philosopher's thoughts. Perhaps you can study the history of philosophy and different thoughts from different areas so you learn to appreciate different people, different cultures, why they think this way. But mostly, I would say fallacies, logic,
logic, reasoning, and
logic
persuasion.
and philosophy, logic and philosophy of religion and African philosophy. I would say those three things. I mean, we can break it up from Form 1 to upper seed. Everybody will have a logic class for their level, for their age group, and philosophy
And
class
even
tuned
younger.
to them is necessary because if you just had the questions, you had that understanding of logical fallacies, you will not be able to you'll be able to question certain things. Oh, you cannot speak to this person like that because she's older than you. You should be able to. I mean, I can speak to you like respectfully. Does not mean that your age and seniority mean that you're more intelligent. That logical fallacy kicks it out. Or you could say, because this person is bad, it means that anything they say should be rejected. That, like, that moral absolutism. Let's bring that out, okay? Or the number of prophets and religious leaders and the fanaticism, we could address that if people learn to critically think, why do I believe this? And not just be blind followers of faith. Actual, if you believe, really believe, you know why you believe. In your own personal encounter, I mean, yeah, it's needed.
Wow. Okay. We are going to make sure we have you back because we just scratched the surface. This conversation didn't go in any way, shape, or form the way we imagined, of course. And that's why I love,
Thank you so much for having me.
oh my gosh, Dr. Monique Kwachou, I know you don't like to be given all your accolades, but you're an absolutely phenomenal person. Thank you for, sprinkling your magic in the world, for, making the choice to break the code, to serve the people that you love in the community that you love and the work that you do, and really take those leaps of faith to spread what I call joy, but sometimes you stir up a pot of trouble and you cause people to, to think, and you bring people into activism, and you're really changing the world. And I'm so, so proud of you. And I'm so honored to be connected to you, and so honored to have you here today sharing this part of your story. I learned so much. I learned so much, and I know our guests will do the same. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you for having me again. Thank
time.
you. Seriously.
Any final thoughts as we close?
Mm. I would say if you are struggling to break a code, if you're struggling to break out of what you've known and might not really know yourself, I would recommend that you reach out to somebody and just discuss. I think the fact that you're struggling already shows you're on the right track.
Hmm.
The people that are deep in it don't even know they have something to break. So if you know, like, this is not the Monique I want to be, this is the Monique I've always known, but this is not the Monique I want to be. I want to be that version. So just knowing that, just that awareness is the first step. There are many other steps, but that first step is big enough.
Hmm.
So go easy on yourself.
Go easy on yourself. Yeah. Don't traumatize yourself in the process. Oh, thank you. I love you, and we'll see you on the next episode.